Getting customers to come back for more is always the goal. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. So in today's video, we're going to go over some things that I think are key elements in maintaining a high customer retention. Because we work in the craft industry and we make things like t-shirts, cards, mouse pads, those kinds of things, we aren't selling 50,000 Rand machines. We have a very unique industry where we can get people coming back for more on a regular basis. But if you don't have some of the basics under wraps, then you may not get customers coming back for a few reasons that are really easy to fix. And in my opinion, number one, the most important one is service. We all know that there's a company that we've dealt with that has had terrible service and that we vow we will never go there again because it took them 3 weeks to get back to you with a quote, or you ordered something and paid and then it took 4 weeks for it to arrive. Those kinds of things. You send them an email asking for a quote and it took them 3 days to get back to you. So in my opinion, service is probably the most important one of getting a customer to come back to you. And a lot of it boils down to communication. Yes, we all experience problems. We have stock issues. Maybe our stock hasn't quite arrived. Maybe we ordered stock and the supplier sent the wrong sizes or the wrong colors. Those kinds of things. A lot of customers are really understanding when it comes to problems because we all know that we've all experienced these kinds of problems ourselves. But it's all about how you handle those problems. And that to me is probably the biggest part of customer retention. If I order something from somebody and it takes 2 weeks to arrive, even though it said that it would be arriving within 3 business days, but I receive no communication, I send them emails, nobody answers my emails, I phone them, nobody picks up the phone, those kinds of things all send off red flags to me. And I know that in the future, if I need something, I will go to the next shop, even if they charge a higher price, because I know that I'm going to be getting a better service. But if somebody had simply replied to my emails saying, sorry, there was a mess up with the supplier, they sent the wrong item to us, which meant that we couldn't process your order, whatever the case may be, it could be a million different things. But if they'd communicated that to me, I would have been like, okay, it's not ideal, but no problem. Thank you for letting me know. So just make sure that if you ever experience problems in the future, that you communicate this to your customers. The second point of what I'd like to cover is your product. We all need to make sure that we take special care when producing the products that we're going to be selling. And not only does this include good materials, but this includes good workmanship as well. If you're marketing your product as an upmarket product to a more upmarket audience, you need to make sure that you have the quality to put behind what you're offering. And this means not buying your shirts at Pick and Pay Clothing, not using the cheapest vinyl you can find, not using an iron to apply your heat transfer vinyl, which, in all honesty, you shouldn't be using in any case, so that's a little bit of a non-issue, and I'm not even going to get into it in this video. But you need to make sure that you're using higher quality products. As an example, t-shirts with a higher thread count, because a higher thread count doesn't necessarily mean a higher quality product, but generally it does. Buying a t-shirt from Woolworths is an example, as opposed to buying something from Pick and Pay Clothing. Ensuring that you're taking the hair off the t-shirt before you press the vinyl onto it, so that you don't have little pieces of hair sticking out underneath the vinyl. If you're not doing t-shirts and you're doing mugs, for example, make sure that you haven't left a strip on the side of the mug where it's faded. Make sure that your design is perfectly level. Make sure that you don't have shadow lines on your design. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. So not only when it comes to the actual products that you're buying, if you see 5 Rand mugs being sold, chances are they're probably reject mugs, or they maybe have chips in them, or they're not of a higher quality. Maybe they didn't pass QA, quality assurance. And a lot of these kinds of things, and I know that I'm probably going to get a little bit of hate for this, a lot of these kinds of things are when you buy products from places like Wish, from places like AliExpress. Yes, I do understand that a lot of the products are perfectly acceptable when it comes from places like that. But unfortunately, all too often we have issues where the only reason people are selling things on Wish or AliExpress is because they're not passing the correct inspections to be able to be sold at a higher price, which means that yes, you can buy the same product for a cheaper price, but it's not necessarily the same quality. And if clients are buying things from you and then they're, breaking within a day or two, chances are you're not going to see that client again. You might even get that client contacting you asking for a refund. So very often it's not worth it to sell a lower quality product purely because of the fact that you're probably going to get that client coming back to you with problems or not coming back to you at all. ever. That kind of leads me into the next point, which is price. Obviously, if you're producing a higher quality product, chances are your materials are going to be slightly higher and your costs are going to be slightly higher and your end product is then going to be slightly higher. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can charge 500 Rand for a t-shirt that's only actually worth 250 Rand. Don't even get me started on places like Gucci and those kinds of things, because like I can go off on a tangent for hours. I've had many people chuckle at me in shops when I comment on the fact that this blouse costs 2,500 Rand. Meanwhile, it's only slightly different from this blouse that costs, 300 Rand. So just don't. And in my opinion, those kinds of things are a ripoff. And chances are the only people that are buying it are people that have far too much money, which is, unfortunately, not the majority of us. So make sure that you're always charging a market-related price and a price that you can also back up. If you're not sure on how to work out price, I have done a video on this in the past and I will link it up in the info card above. So I would recommend taking a look at that video once you're done with this one. Of course, on the other side of price, you also don't want to underestimate yourself. If you know something is worth something, don't be afraid to ask for it. Your time is valuable and you need to make sure that you are charging for it. I know that this can be difficult because a lot of times we have these kinds of businesses aren't bringing in crazy amounts of money, and we need absolutely every last penny that's coming into our business. We also need to consider things like buying in a shop in Cape Town would be a different price to buying in a shop in a rural town or in an outskirt town. Buying something in the center of town would be far more expensive than buying something in an area where I'm in, because I'm in an outskirt suburb of Cape Town and they wouldn't necessarily charge as much out here. So those are the other kinds of things that you would need to consider with price. The second last important thing that I need to go over is timing. You want to make sure that you are delivering the best possible service, the best possible product in the best possible time. This of course doesn't mean that if a client WhatsApps you at 10 o'clock at night that they need 12 shirts completed by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, that you have to absolutely jump and get it ready for them. No, that's not the case. What I mean here is that if you are able to deliver a product within a reasonable time frame, let's say 2 or 3 business days, you wouldn't necessarily delay the process by 3 or 4 additional business days just because you can, but you would want to make sure that you get that product out to the client as soon as possible. And that means being able to deliver a good service or a good product within a reasonable time frame. The last thing that I want to go over is no. The power of no is something that I've done a video on in the past, and again I will link it in the info card, but I strongly suggest watching this video to the end before checking out those videos. No is something that, like I mentioned earlier, is very hard for some people to say. Purely because this is probably a main source of income. Maybe you are scrounging pennies together and you are struggling to make ends meet. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I know how it goes. I know how dire these times are. It is very difficult. So it may be very difficult for you to say no, but at the end of the day, if you invest a ton of your time into something that's not profitable at all, and in all honesty, I don't have very much of a rebuttal for that. I can sit here and preach about how you shouldn't be taking on clients like that. I understand how it goes, and at the end of the day, if I personally had to choose between working for 3 hours to earn 10 Rand because I needed to eat that day and not taking that job, I would take the job. Because it is very hard. And I really hope that you get to a level one day where you are able to say no to customers. I think a lot of people out there that are watching this video are able to say no to certain customers. And if you have a customer that's always complaining, that sends you messages at 10 o'clock at night, expecting a large order to be fulfilled by the next morning, yes, I understand that sometimes life happens, and sometimes we do end up in situations where we need something done in a much shorter time frame. But chances are the only reason that client is there is because of their own fault. They've woken up too late, or a multitude of different reasons. And it's up to you whether you're going to entertain that kind of thing or not. But I can almost guarantee you that in the future, that client will come back to you in the same state, at the same time, and expect the same service over and over again. So even though you absolutely killed yourself to have their order ready, and you made sure that this was a special exception that you weren't going to do again, they're not going to care. They're going to come back to you because they knew that they could manipulate you into doing that, and they're going to do it again. They will do it again. Guaranteed. So by saying no, not only are you teaching that client to kind of proper prepare in the future, but you're saving yourself a lot of stress. In times like these where anxiety is around every corner, we need to make sure that we're catering for our mental health, because we all suffer from anxiety in one form or another, and we need to make sure that we're not pushing ourselves unnecessarily and causing ourselves unnecessary stress. I really do hope that this video was valuable for you. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and let me know if you've had any nightmare clients in the past. I'd love to hear some of your stories. Subscribe to my channel for more craft related tutorials in the future, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon.